Hello, and thanks for watching another ARFCOM ballistic test. Today we're going to test some budget best millimeter. Specifically, we're testing Fiocchi 180 grain jacketed hollow point fired from a TNW Arrow survival pistol with a 10¼ inch barrel. Now, we previously tested this same load, but from a Glock Model 20 with a normal pistol-length barrel, and the performance was decent, but unremarkable. It did expand, and it did penetrate adequately, but the velocity was pretty mediocre compared to other loads in the holy caliber, and it fragmented a bit. We'll link to that test in the description, and we'll probably throw a card up there in the top right corner of this video right about now, if we remember. The question for today is how much more velocity will we get from the longer barrel, and whether that additional velocity will be enough to improve terminal effect. Those questions and more will be answered after a brief word from our sponsor, TNVC.
Hey, you! Do you want to see in the dark like a superhero? TNVC.com is your source for the finest night vision devices and accessories to make you the bump in the night.
But Tuco said it best.
When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
So let's get out to the range and get some answers.
All right, much better. The second shot stayed in entirely. Both shots had ½ an inch neck, pretty much immediate expansion. We see really big fragmentation that deviated from the main path substantially. You see how here and here and here, lots of them coming off at about a 45-degree angle or so, leaving a whole bunch of fragments in this area, inside of this area where there's a lot of temporary stretch cavity. Although that's not normally great in pistol rounds, when you see them coming way off the track like that and a lot of temporary stretch cavity, that's not terrible. The total penetration, 17.7 inches. Retained weight is obviously not going to be 100%, but it looks to be fairly decent. Oh, not too bad. This is really uniform. That's almost a perfect circle here. Even though it lost all these chunks, it still ended up being pretty uniform. My guess here is I'm thinking probably 60 to 70% weight retention.
They said. All right.
And, you know, normally you lose that much weight and you don't make it deeply enough to reach vital organs, but man, it is just trucking out of that 10¼ inch barrel. That is fairly impressive. We'll get the measurements on expansion and weight retention when we get back home.
Holy cow, did you see that high speed? That's really impressive. I gotta say, I'm a little conflicted on this one though. I mean, at first glance, it is indeed pretty gnarly. And before I get to the part where I say but, I just want to put that bottom line up front. This load is perfectly suitable for defense, whether fired from a 4½ inch barrel or 10¼ inch barrel, and I'm pretty sure it would be just fine from a 16-inch tube as well. It expanded rapidly and it penetrated adequately. That alone means it would be effective. But these tests are about assessing relative effectiveness compared with similar loads. Every time I say anything remotely negative about a specific load or caliber or gun, there's somebody in the comments saying, I dare you to stand in front of it. Look, I dare you to let me hit you in the face with a wet bag of poo. What? You wouldn't like that? Well, then it must be perfect for self-defense, right? So yeah, the temporary stretch cavity we see here on the high speed is truly impressive, and the fragments deviate well away from the primary wound track, which means they can help to cause tearing in the tissues stretched by the temporary cavity. On the other hand, the velocity we get here from the 10 1/4 inch barrel is consistent with what I'd like to see from a 4 1/2 inch barrel with this caliber and bullet weight. I can't help but consider what this projectile could be doing if it was starting with a spicier powder charge. It's not unreasonable to expect 1,500 feet per second for 180 grain 10 mil from a 10 inch barrel. But this is a budget load, and its performance is perfectly adequate with or without heavy clothing and across a pretty significant velocity range, and that right there is what makes best millimeter best. I've tested literally hundreds of 10 millimeter loads, and the overwhelming majority has done pretty well. In almost every case, they expand rapidly and penetrate adequately. The only failures have been lead core bullets weighing less than 165 grains and one pervy partisan load at 180 grains that was slower than 10 millimeter Kerrs at about 800 feet per second. If you put a 165 or 180 grain bullet on top of a proper powder charge in 10 millimeter, you're gonna get decent performance even if the bullet isn't the best. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Do you like watching gun-related content on YouTube, or do you want stuff like this to fade off into the sunset as our robot overlords cleanse us of all wrongthink? If you do like watching banger content like this, please support it by supporting our sponsors. Without them, we couldn't make these videos. And if you're wondering why you don't see more of this channel or any of the other gun-tuber wrongthink out there, maybe it's because YouTube unsubscribed you. Our viewers have been telling us they keep getting unsubscribed even though they never even touched that button. So now is the perfect time to double check and ring that notification bell while you're at it so you never miss an episode. I love you. Whoa. YouTube faces.